Thanks for listening to the Pioneer Made to Grow podcast. I'm Andrew Campbell, and we've talked a lot about Enlist and E3 soybeans over the last few years, all in an effort to try to bring growers up to speed on what's coming down the pipeline. What's different today is real-world examples. We've got a few years of data now, there's new varieties in lineups like the Z Series, and there's practical tips for how to make the transition as smooth as possible. That's why today's episode brings those real-world examples to life. Jevin is a farmer from the Ridgetown area of Southwestern Ontario. Chris Robson is the new Pioneer area agronomist covering Jevin's area, along with the rest of Essex and Kent counties. And Aaron Bowman is a Pioneer sales rep from the Bowmanville area of Eastern Ontario. Jevin, Chris, Aaron, thanks for joining the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
So, Jevin, I'm going to start with you. You're a grower in kind of the Southwest area, Ridgetown area. You've been growing Enlist for a few years, going all Enlist for 2025. Let's talk about your experience first. What made you switch to the Enlist program, a few years ago, and how's it gone?
Yes. So we've been growing for E3s now. This will be kind of our third year upcoming here. So we had a lot of extends before. And for us, kind of, I guess one of the changes is to start using different modes of action, different herbicide groups to prevent resistance. So Enlist is a group 4, Liberty a group 10. And like I say, we've used Liberty in the past. It's a great product, but for us, with the weed spectrum that we're dealing with now, it's nice to be able to have some products that you can mix together to take out bigger weeds and more resistant weeds, and nice to have a product that is safe to work with, easy to use, and mixes well with other things. So that's kind of been why we headed that way. So.
Well, because you talk about a part of the province that gets to deal with all those weed issues.
Yep.
It's kind of your neck of the woods. And so it is a case of, so over the last, can you talk a little bit about what are the weeds that you fight with the most, and how has the program kind of attacked those?
Yeah, so you're right. We got a wide variety of weeds in our fields. We deal with a lot of the same ones that everybody deals with. A lot of lamb's quarters, a lot of ragweed, giant ragweed. We do have water hemp coming in now on our farms. There, it's been very minimal. I really haven't seen much, but that is becoming an increasing issue. For us, this past year, so in the 2024 growing season, we had a lot of dandelion pressure. We had a lot of field horsetail, wild carrot. We're also canola growers, so we deal with volunteer canola all the time too. So to have Enlist has been nice. Liberty works good on some of these weeds, but when you get to dandelions and things like that, it's nice to have the Enlist to be able to take that out and do a good job on it. So that's kind of what we've been using.
So then, Aaron, for you in Eastern Ontario, then, can you give an idea with the growers you're talking to and the growers that you're selling products to? Is it kind of similar experiences to what Jevin is as they move to the Enlist platform?
Yeah. For the most part, it's been a nice transition for a lot of the growers. The package that comes along, or the trait package with the Enlist platform, controls a lot of the tough weeds, and with water hemp moving in just to the east side of my trading territory, we've actually seen a real advantage with the Enlist program.
Mm-hmm. But it is one of those things, like, as a grower myself, I don't change well, Aaron. I know I'm unique as a grower that way. But it is one of those, it's the honest challenge in that I have a variety that I really like, I'm comfortable with because it's performed consistently. And there have been those varieties. Tell me, how has it been to have those conversations with growers to say, okay, it's a great bean, but here we've got another great bean. It just happens to have a different number.
Yeah, so in my exact area, 09A53X has done all the heavy lifting, and so it is very hard for growers to leave such a great bean, such a versatile bean, and out of the gate, some of the Enlist varieties weren't as good as 09A53X, but now with the new Z Series, I'll Canadianify it, they're phenomenal. At the end of the day, I want to continue to keep selling to the growers and supporting them. So if the product's not there, I'm not going to sell it.
Um, that's a feeling I kind of get, Chris, from chatting with my Pioneer rep too, in terms of knowing that honestly, if it's not successful, I'm not going to come back. So I have very strong trust, in that relationship. But we've kind of got the Ridgetown experience and the Bowmanville experience. Chris, from your experience, kind of a wider area, and hearing from other agronomists across the province, has the experience been the same over the last couple of years?
Quite good, really, right? So, if we back up, originally the list chemistry got registered prior to the registration of the soybeans. We had, good track record with the chemistry and growers getting comfortable with it. And then the Enlist trait got registered, and we finally were able to launch soybeans. As a crop protection rep, I was getting a little bit frustrated some days with some of the Pioneer folks because they weren't moving fast. And frankly, for good reason. Those initial varieties, suited a purpose. If you needed the trait package because of weed problems, that kind of stuff, then it offered you a solution to go there. The varieties were competitive, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they were better than. So, it took some time to kind of evolve the lineup to the point where customers and then Pioneer reps felt good about the lineup and were ready to go to, customers in a bigger way with some of the variety packages that we have, right? In general now, with the Z series coming out, those were the beans that we started working with when we first put our foot in the sand and said, hey, we're going to, hop in a big way on the Enlist train. And now you're seeing the fruits of that labor, right? So higher yield, better white mold, better sudden death scores, better phytophthora scores, just all around better beans. But in general, to Aaron's comment, that was usually the initial kind of frustration for growers. I like variety X. Hey, it's done well for me. I'm not sure I'm ready to go. But as we've transitioned and the beans have frankly gotten better, that's getting less and less.
Well, and it's not unique just to this situation. We've had the same thing, whether it's a soybean, whether it's a corn hybrid, whatever it is. You get comfortable with one because it does perform so consistently. It can be hard to give that up. And sometimes maybe it takes a year or two to, oh, wait a minute, this is not only just as good, but even better based on those other genetics. And I think that probably is a case of, for a grower like me, for a lot of growers, we just need that year or two experience to be able to feel that, to be able to see that.
Yep, and I think we're there now. And then you look at a wider experience again, you think of the US where we're 65-ish% market share now in the state, so the system's performed well, and it's working. And I don't think we would be in that position if there, the trait package didn't work and if the varieties weren't there, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and Jevin, I think that goes to kind of your experience in the terms of, you've just done it a year or two ahead of a lot of other growers, having gone through that experience. But you are going all Enlist this year. What brings you the confidence that that's the right decision?
Yeah. So like I said, we've done E3 beans now. This will be our third year all in. We worked kind of half and half last year, and then just a few E3s the year before. And I guess for us, like the biggest thing again is just the weed spectrum, right? Like with using Ingenia, you got to be very careful, kind of in crop, right? Like you read the labels and follow that, but you get a little bit more scared when the canopy starts to green up and you don't want to use it anymore. Whereas at least with Liberty and with Enlist, you got options, later on in crop when your weeds get bigger or you still got a flush of weeds there. You're not as concerned because I find with the Enlist product, we got a good product that is safe, not volatile. It doesn't drift easily. It's got that safener in there, so that really helps us. So it really gives us options later on in season 2. And I think with Enlist, you're good up to R2. Which is pretty late if you think about it. If you got a really late flush of weeds or a field you missed or you just didn't have it didn't spray well or didn't have a good control the first time, you got options. And so that's kind of why for us we just want to go in with the E3s and kind of stay this route because number one, we like the varieties. We feel they're performing well. We're happy with how they yielded. We had really good beans last year and even the year before. And now we just got a lot more options for cleanup. So
Then, Chris, using your, chem rep experience when, kind of your previous life before being the Pioneer Agronomist now, basically, you would have had a lot of these conversations with growers that did have a lot of questions, not only just on the variety side and what worked and what didn't, but obviously on, kind of what that spray program needed to look like. What were some of the most common questions you got over the last couple of years and are getting as more and more growers do switch over into 2025?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, first things first. Let's compare the two systems. What am I gaining? What am I giving up? Kind of thing, right? It worked. So, where am I going to go? And the first thing we always talk about, every grower, regardless of the trait package or system that you're in, is trying to put a good residual down. Good residual chemistry program to help with weed resistance. We've got 5-way resistant water hemp, now in the province. So trying to delay the onset of resistance as much as we can and keep the technology alive. So start there, so that we can keep weeds small and keep it manageable. When we think about things like ragweed, water hemp, fleabane, horsetail, some of the harder to control stuff, that we're both going to do, frankly, a good job. But where the systems start to separate is, kind of to Jevin's comment, is just the in-crop capability and safety that you can have with an Enlist system, right? So we have no temperature restrictions on the label. You can spray up to R2 with Enlist and glyphosate, so it does give you that opportunity for late applications. We talked about it off air. I'm sure Aaron will touch on it, but the fact that you have Liberty and Enlist in your back pocket if things do get really out of control is a really nice feature as well too. And then we spent a lot of time, we developed these Enlist kind of best practices cards, so Pioneer reps would have a stack of these. Certainly any retail folks should as well, but there's outlines kind of everything that hopefully that a grower can do to make sure they have success. So, nozzle types, we want a coarse nozzle, not the ultra coarse nozzle like you might have had with the Extend system. So we get better coverage, decent water volumes. I don't want you kind of using under 10, so 10 to 15 gallons typically is fine. Rates of Enlist, there's a lower rate and a higher rate, so depending on the weed size and everything that you're going after. But general growers have had, really good luck. But, where sometimes growers have gone off course a little bit is just, I think, relying on the Enlist system alone to do all the heavy lifting, which isn't what we want. And then weed size typically is the other concern. So we'll talk, 4 to 6 inch weeds is ideally what we're targeting. And typically when I get called to the field that performance wasn't as good, we're looking at, 1.5 foot tall fleabane that any system, frankly, is going to struggle with, right? So.
Well, because Aaron, that's such a challenge in the fact that the strength of the Enlist system brings in flexibility for, and you'll have had the same issues we've had here in Western Ontario in terms of what weather can do in delaying of spraying. So the Enlist program brings such strength to the table in terms of flexibility. The challenge always is how long did we have to be flexible for, and how tall did these weeds get? That we're being able to control. So I guess I'm kind of curious, what are those conversations like for you as you're trying to talk growers through what that spray program can look like? Because there are pros and cons to it.
Well, I think Chris touched it the best in the sense that it just having that flexibility, especially if the planting season carries on, gets a bit late, a field gets away from you. Like Jevin said, it happens, even though we don't want it to happen. I saw it last year. I had actually a customer that was a bit reluctant to switch over to Enlist, and now he's very committed to it just because he had the option. He was right beside a vegetable farm, because we do have a lot of vegetable farms down by the lake and around me. And he was still able to spray and take down that exact fleabane you just described that was way too big, and take it down quite successfully. And I was very, very impressed. He used the kind of liquid lava program, so he went with Liberty and Enlist, and it did a phenomenal job. So it's just that flexibility and being able to use all the traits you're paying for is kind of nice versus being possibly hung up with a weather issue.
Then, Jevin, how has your spray program evolved? Because there is that side of it, that we know that, with that increased flexibility becomes a lot more choices in terms of what we can and can't spray and timing and all those types of things. How has yours evolved over the last couple of years as you've learned to work with the traits?
Yeah, like I think the biggest thing is treat every field has to be kind of treated differently. It's not an all systems approach on all your farms. I love walking fields. I love scouting. I love seeing what exact weeds are. But that's the nice thing about the with Enlist or with the E3 program is you can cater products specifically to what's in that field. So I don't have to necessarily mix all three together. I don't have to necessarily mix all two together. As long as I know kind of what my weeds are, then I can kind of make a decision what I'm going to do. But I have so many different options, and I think for me that's kind of how it's evolved. It used to kind of be like we have the same chemical we put across all the acres, right? And now we're starting to kind of switch that around a little bit and thinking, okay, like to prevent resistance here, let's just cater exactly what needs to go what needs to go down, and also from a cost savings point too, right? We don't need to necessarily do all three together, all two together. We can save some money there too. So
Um, and along those same lines, as we talk about, kind of things to learn and things that are different. One of the nice things with an approach like that, where it is different field to field, is we can also maybe, throw in a foliar application, throw in some micronutrients, do different things like that, field to field, based on what a field needs. I guess I'm curious, based on that, because that is your approach to growing beans. What other lessons have you learned, Jevin, in terms of kind of working with a new product and taking that individualized approach?
yeah, it's definitely like I said, we're a couple years in, but we have learned something. So for instance, last year we learned with Enlist there are certain micronutrients you got to be careful that don't mix well, because we did plug a sprayer, and everybody should plug once a sprayer once in their career, and it keeps you humble, as I always say, and actually it's a good way to clean out the sprayer and just start from scratch again. But so yeah, we had to learn the hard way. But after talking to the foliar rep, we learned there was a different product we were supposed to use instead. So again, like doing jar tests, talking to your reps, knowing what can mix and what cannot mix, and like we went to a different product after that, a different foliar, and it mixed great with Enlist. We had no issues. So it's just kind of that was one of the biggest things we learned on it. And like I say, it when you're going through the field anyway, whether you're putting Enlist down, Enlist Roundup, or with Liberty, it's so nice to be able to have options to add foliar things depending on what's going on in your field. So I'm confident to say that it mixes well with most products. You just got to know which ones it doesn't. So.
Well, and Chris, I'm sure you're the kind of rep that gets that call when somebody has run into issues. You mentioned a little bit of it earlier in terms of you've got kind of the guides, there's places, but what are some of the other places that a grower like me that I am going to try. Yes, I've been used to mixing these products the last several years. I'm now going to do something different. And as much as Jevin thinks I can plug a sprayer once in my career, I don't think I really want to. Where are some of those places I can go to at least feel a little more comfortable and a little more confident that the products, the order, all of those are right as I do try something new?
Yeah, well, it's, I mean, I showed you the card earlier, so certainly the basics are on there, so you can get those from your Pioneer rep or any of the retail partners that you may work with. There's lots of information on the Pioneer website. Certainly, there's an Enlist Canada website. There's an Enlist US website. So sometimes there's things that the US has tested or have approved on their label that we don't have yet. And then there is a Corteva app that you can have on your phone that would have again the majority of the basic information. Lots of tank mix recommendations. Usually the question I get from growers is typically tank mix, order, which product do I put in first? All that is available on the phone, at least with the Corteva products that we deal with. And then we'll tell you, we talk about WAM legs quite a bit. So, which one goes in first. So if you're ever stuck at the field and need that reminder, it should all be available on the app for you too. But yeah, to Jevin's point, foliars have been a bit of a concern by times, specifically manganese products. We're getting a better list of which ones seem to be compatible, which ones don't. So when in doubt, make that 30-second phone call to your retail rep or one of the foliar reps. But there's so many in the market, it's hard to test them all. In terms of herbicides, no concerns. But the typical thing that comes up is typically mixing order. So, you put the wrong product in first, or if you think of the inductor, growers will often put their Enlist 1 in and then follow it immediately with their glyphosate. And when we touch pure chemical, the pure chemical, it'll salt out and cause some problems in your sprayer. So just, give it time, lots of water, that kind of stuff. Fungicides, no concerns. Same with insecticides, that kind of stuff, right? So as long as you're doing your normal best practices and then just confirming your manganese source, should not be any major concerns.
And then the last thing before we kind of start to wrap up here, Chris, is in terms of one of the other benefits is obviously what the temperature is outside, being able to spray in some of those hot days. But the beans don't always look phenomenal after you do that. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what that Enlist program looks like when it is a hot day? Conditions otherwise are great for spraying. We couldn't spray, kind of the Ingenia before, but now we can maybe spray this, but we just have to be ready for a phone call, maybe.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often, and Jevin, can confirm this for you if you're curious. But the odd time the Enlist trait is really robust, right? So we can handle a large amount of Enlist ones. We always prepare for overlaps on overlaps kind of thing, right? Make sure that there's going to be no detrimental effect. But the odd time, if those beans are hot and stressed and you apply a herbicide application, so in most cases it's to do with the Enlist trait specifically, you may see those beans kind of lie over or get a little droopy for kind of 24, maybe 48 hours at most. It does not happen often. They'll pop right back up. There's no yield concern. I always had kind of describe it like you just ate a big turkey dinner and you need to lie down for a little bit to digest it. It's just the soybean trying to deal with whatever environmental stress that it's working under, plus trying to digest that chemical load, right? So it doesn't happen every single time, certainly, but the odd time it does. And Jevin, you can describe your situation, but I know I got a phone call from you describing that exact scenario, right?
Yeah, we had this one this past year, and actually, I it was on my father-in-law's field, so I figured once that happened, I was disowned or going to be kicked out of the family. But like Chris says, it took some time. It took a day. I was very concerned, but a day later, you went back and they look great again. So it does happen. That wilt does happen, but it snaps back from it. So it's.
You're confident you're still in the will.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But maybe so.
Then Aaron, as we kind of wrap up, I think one of the things, from your perspective as a pioneer rep, we've gone through this evolution over the last few years of moving growers, from the Extend system, which brought a comfort to it because it was something they were used to an Enlist system. Talk a little bit about, the growers that have moved once again, and those conversations as growers do continue to move. Is everybody feeling like, this is the right change? Are they feeling confident in kind of the recommendations that you've been growing and other pioneer reps have been growing in Eastern Ontario?
Yeah, for the most part. Being a pioneer rep, you're always on the farm. You're always working with them. You're kind of you're sometimes their first source of agronomy information, and they're trusted that way. So, as I said earlier, you're not going to put your reputation on the line if the product is not there, right? So for the most part, guys are moving along to the program, basically saying you wouldn't sell me a product that's not going to yield, or I won't be back on their farm next year, right? And so from that standpoint, I've seen a good move that way. I still have some people a bit reluctant, and we'll continue to work, and I'm hoping their neighbors and other people's experiences around them will help them see that we have the genetics and the trait package is a nice program regardless of what you're using today.
Well, and Jevin, you're kind of the living example of that, basically, in terms of that you are full of confidence going into 2025 with the results that you're expecting to see at the end of the year.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, because after spraying it and walking fields and kind of seeing how the actual Enlist product works, I'm very confident in it. Yeah, so it'll be something we'll be using again this year, and along with Liberty, again depends on the fields or whatever, but those two products I'm very very confident in. So yes.
And Chris, kind of last word to you in terms of where that pipeline is at from new varieties and research. We've seen a lot of new products come to market over the last 2 years, with a lot of new ones coming for growers. Not just in the far southwest. For growers like Jevin and myself, but for growers all across central Canada. What does that look like going into 2025 and the next couple of years?
Yeah, you mentioned it. We brought in the Z series, which I said earlier was that kind of initial, hey, we're moving over. Prior to that, we were taking the existing lines and popping out the Extend gene in favor of the Enlist gene. But all these are brand new genetics, and really really excited. But the pipeline is awfully full. So I know growers tend to get frustrated with this when we kill a favorite variety and want to replace it with something new, but. I'm quite confident in the lineup that, if we're bringing it out, we're going to, test it with the Pioneer reps, and they're going to tell us whether we're on the right track or not pretty quickly. And same with customers ultimately with their purchase decisions. But yeah, there's lots of stuff coming. There's new cyst traits, in the horizon, working on more dual stack Phytophthora stuff. So the lineup's going to continue to evolve, and I'm quite confident that it's going to continue to, get better and give you things that ultimately you're looking for, right? And the nice part is, like I said, the Pioneer reps are not shy about telling us when we're doing well and when we're doing not, right? So,
and growers too. I can't
Absolutely.
imagine they're very shy either. So, but you know what? I really appreciate the conversation, guys, because I think it is one of those where, there is a lot of change over the last few years. And I think just to be able to go from that place we were a couple of years ago to here's what that process is going to look like, to be able to now have some real world experience, good and bad, but see some real optimism, going forward. I think it's just a testament to what's to come, into this growing season and beyond. So, Chris, Jevin, Aaron, thanks for sharing your experience with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That does it for this episode. Don't forget, whether you listen to us on a podcast app or watch the episodes on the Corteva Canada's YouTube channel, by subscribing, you'll be among the first to know when a new episode drops. If you'd like to stay in touch, you can always follow Pioneer Seeds on X at the handle Pioneer Seeds CA, or find me at Fresh Air Farmer. And don't forget, if you're ever looking for more information or advice, just ask your local Pioneer rep or visit pioneer.com/Canada.